Ah yes, the NFL draft, where dreams both come true and start their slow death at the exact same time. But today we're going to learn about 5 draft day failures that aren't related to a player being a bust or not. I'm talking about epic fails that happened on the day itself. You'll see what I mean right after this. So every team has made horrible draft picks. It's kind of hard to determine whether a guy with a cannon arm is going to turn into Ryan Leaf or not.
Don't talk to me, alright?
But for this list, these are draft day fails that were either cringeworthy moments or pure error on a drafting team, that in some cases altered players' lives and changed the course of history. Number 5, the Vikings not understanding how time works. You might have heard about the Vikings missing a pick before, however this story is great because the Vikings fucked up 2 years in a row. In 2003, the Vikings had the 7th overall pick. Several teams were interested in the slot and the Vikes started to take bids from squads interested in trading up. However, while trying to wheel and deal, their 15 allotted minutes expired and the Vikings lost the chance to pick. In the awkwardness and confusion, the Panthers, who had the 8th pick, quickly drafted Jordan Gross. And the Jags drafted Byron Leftwich at number 9. And finally, the Vikings filled out the right paperwork and got the guy they said they wanted to draft all along in DT Kevin Williams. So basically, they traded down and got nothing for their pick. Like when the Browns drafted Johnny Manziel.
I can't hear.
We can't hear you.
There's too much money in my fucking head.
What's funny to me is the year before, the Vikes did the opposite when again they had the 7th overall pick and Kansas City was on the clock at 6. Somehow thinking KC had messed up and let their allotted time expire, the Vikings announced they were taking defensive tackle Ryan Sims. Except KC had just drafted him a couple minutes before that. Luckily, the commish didn't backhand slap the Vikes for that, and they took OT Brian McKinney, who ended up being a much better pro than Sims. I guess sometimes your incompetence works out, right? Number 4, the Redskins draft the same ineligible player twice. Speaking of making mistakes over and over again, we have to go way back to the 1946 draft when the Redskins, a team with a stellar reputation for handling player personnel, thought they had their guy in the form of young back Cal Rossi. And picking at number 9, they were thrilled he was still on the board and had fallen to him at that slot. Only problem was, dude hadn't finished college yet, and back then there wasn't a crazy notion that talent that is ready for the NFL should be able to be drafted into the NFL. The Redskins didn't get to pick anyone else as they simply lost the pick, and then the following year they wanted Rossi so bad they drafted him again in the first round. Except he had made it clear he didn't want to play professional football and became a teacher/coach instead. I wish Eric Flowers had a knack for teaching. Number 3, we want football. Okay, so this isn't a team blunder per se, it's an entire league blunder. In 2011, during an ugly lockout, the NFL decided airing the NFL draft as if nothing were wrong, even though both sides were miles apart on a signed CBA, would have no negative repercussions. And that backfired on them, as for nearly an entire minute, Roger Goodell got booed as his vacuous Frank Drebin-like expression stood in front of the crowd and took his lumps like Glenn and Abraham. Only after he deflected the booing by bringing up the tornado tragedies that occurred in Alabama did the angry New York crowd finally settle down. Still though, what a tool. Number 2, the Falcons draft the Duke. In 1972, as the NFL draft entered its 17th round, the Falcons had already pretty much shored up all the picks they wanted for the upcoming season. They needed a leader to fill out their roster, so their eyes turned to a former USC tailback whom they referred to as the roughest, toughest SOB in the draft. Turns out that SOB was none other than actor John Wayne, who was 65 at the time. And yes, the Falcons legitimately phoned the pick into Commissioner Pete Rozelle, who dismissed it as a prank immediately. What's funny is Wayne never played a football player in a movie, only a coach once. Incidentally, in 2007, the Raiders also drafted an imposter with the number 1 overall pick. Number 1, the Buccaneers draft the wrong guy. In 1982, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, once the laughingstock of the league after they started 0-26, were looking to add some pieces to their division-winning squad and bolster a team that had Doug Williams and future Hall of Famer Leroy Selman. The Bucs held the 17th overall pick, and it came down between two guys, guard Sean Farrell out of Penn State or defensive end Booker Reese out of Bethune-Cookman. And ultimately, they decided on Reese, and as their 15 minutes wound down, they called in the pick to the commissioner and sat back and waited for the pick to be announced. Problem was, John Farrell was the one they watched on the screen as the stunned Bucs executives looked at each other saying, "What the fuck happened?" Literally. What did happen was team equipment manager Pat Marcucillo was given the task of sending in the pick. And at the time, speaker phones weren't exactly reliable, and he misheard the part about how they wanted Reese, not Farrell, and he ended up turning in the wrong draft card. What followed after the cursing died down was even more bizarre, as the Bucs traded their first-round pick in the '83 draft to the Bears to take Reese in the second round, as he was still somehow available. And that was a really bad move, as Reese was out of the league in less than 3 years, and the '83 draft was stacked with talent like Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, John Elway, and Eric Dickerson. The Bears selected speedster Willie Gault with the pick. This series of bad moves returned the Bucs to the abyss of the NFL's basement, as Doug Williams would end up leaving, and it took nearly 20 years before finally seeing their way out of the darkness. I guess sometimes you're given every sign on earth not to do something, yet you still do it.
The San Diego Chargers select quarterback, Washington State University, Brian Leaf.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And if you really like me, hit that notification bell and get told immediately when I upload. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.